A 66-year-old French senator is in police custody after being accused of drugging an MP with the intention of assaulting her.
At least 5 Palestinians have been killed in an Israeli hospital raid in the occupied West Bank as strikes continue across Gaza.
The UK's top diplomat announces a new plan to provide Ukraine with discounted war insurance on the country's exports.
French Senator Joël Guerriau was detained by the police on suspicion of drugging an MP with the intention of assaulting her, the Paris Public Prosecutor's Office said. MP Sandrine Josso, who is 48, has accused the 66-year-old of drugging her with ecstasy after she went to his home for dinner. He's facing charges of administering to a person without their knowledge a substance likely to impair their discernment or control over their actions in order to commit rape or sexual assault.
In the occupied West Bank, away from the besieged enclave of Gaza, at least 5 Palestinians have been killed during an Israeli raid at the Ibn Sina hospital in Jenin near a refugee camp. Palestinian media says IDF armoured vehicles and bulldozers are isolating the area. Israeli strikes continue across Gaza. Internet and phone services have collapsed across the strip due to a lack of fuel for generators. Leaflets are being dropped over some areas of Khan Yunis, ordering people to evacuate. UN agencies say they are refusing to create safe zones until security is guaranteed.
There is nowhere safe in Gaza. Whether in the north, in the south, in the middle, there is none. People have been asked to go from the north to the south, but in reality, one third of the people killed have been killed in the south. So the south is not safe. Even the UN compounds are not safe.
This comes a day after Israeli soldiers started their raid on Gaza's main hospital. They claim it's being used as Hamas's main operation center. The IDF says it's found a large amount of weapons and have released footage of what they call an operational tunnel shaft coming from under the hospital. 42 days into the conflict and more than 11,000 Palestinians have been killed and at least 1,200 Israelis.
A few of the survivors of the Hamas attack on Israel on October the 7th have spoken to Euronews on a visit to Hungary. They are among supporters who travelled to watch the Israeli football team play in their Euro 2024 qualifiers in Budapest. One woman described rushing with her 3 children and husband to a shelter as the attack began. They were eventually rescued after 23 hours.
Without nothing to eat, nothing to drink, we didn't speak. We always were in our phone, in the WhatsApp groups that in the kibbutz, and hear about all that happened. We heard a lot of shooting.
One of the residents of the Kfar Azar kibbutz was hiding in the basement with her family when Hamas gunmen invaded their house. They fired from the house's roof at the locals, killing more than 60 of them. Despite this, Elena is not considering moving away from the area.
Although we are not living in the kibbutz right now, we want to go back. We will be stronger. We will be, I want to say, wiser, and probably will be better as a community. But Hamas is not going to win this time. We are going back because this is our houses, and this is our home, and this is our community.
The survivors had dozens of friends taken hostage in Gaza, and they say they haven't heard anything about their fate since the attack.
At least 1 person has been killed and 8 more wounded, including a child, in a Russian attack on the Ukrainian city of Kherson. The area was recaptured by Ukrainian forces last year, but has since been shelled by Russian forces on the other side of the Dnipro River. It comes as British Foreign Secretary David Cameron visited the port city of Odessa, which has repeatedly been attacked by Russian missiles. He announced a new plan to provide Kyiv with discounted war insurance on the country's exports.
Odessa is going to be vital for Ukraine's economic recovery, and I'm proud of the fact that we're announcing today the launch of an insurance facility to help ships to leave this port, to go through the new maritime lane, and to make sure that Ukraine can benefit from those exports.
Cameron's two-day visit comes as Ukraine faces several challenges on and off the battlefield. Kyiv is struggling to keep the world's attention as Israel's war in Gaza rages on. U.S. funding is being jeopardized by political fights in Washington, and the EU says it can't provide all the munitions it's promised.
A report by the European Broadcasting Union says it's found Russia has been systematically eradicating Ukrainian identity in illegally annexed territories. The EBU's investigative journalism network says Ukrainians are being denied healthcare and free movement unless they take on Russian citizenship. People interviewed for the report spoke of relentless pro-Russian propaganda in occupied eastern locations. Those include Donetsk, Luhansk and parts of Kherson and Zaporizhia.
У них завдання було це максимально зневелювати взагалі існування української держави тут на території Херсонської області. І вивести на те, що тут дійсно жили новороси або як вони малороси, як вони їх називали. І вони і люди, які мешкають тут, вони не мають зовсім ніякого відношення взагалі до української держави, української культури і всього іншого.
The report says Moscow is influencing young minds through the education system. School lessons are taught in Russian and history from a Russian perspective. Ukrainian textbooks are banned. Residents say Russian authorities have threatened to remove children from parents without Russian passports.
So basically, the textbook is a tool of propaganda. It is denying the Ukrainian children access to their own culture, their own history, and it is trying to transform those children into the model citizen that Russia wants them to become.
So-called Russification efforts in eastern Ukraine have accelerated since the military invasion last year. Historians say the Kremlin has been doing everything in its power to win the hearts and minds of local populations. Russian authorities declined to be interviewed for the report.
Socialist leader Pedro Sanchez has been sworn in by King Felipe VI for another term as Spain's Prime Minister. It comes after lengthy coalition negotiations with 6 smaller parties, including Catalan separatists, and a confirmation vote in Parliament on Thursday. The coalition agreement includes a controversial amnesty deal for Catalan separatist leaders that has provoked fury among Spanish nationalists. The centre-right Popular Party won July's snap election, but not by enough to secure a majority.
It looks like an ordinary supermarket, but it's not. It's one of the few stores in the Italian capital that allows those in need to get their groceries for free. According to the country's National Statistics Institute, 1 in 12 Italians lived in absolute poverty last year. And with those figures on the rise, more and more people cannot afford buying essential items like food or clothing. Vittoria is one of them. She relies on a few €100 from her pension. She comes here once a month to get extra help.
Adesso io ringrazio Dio perché c'ho un tetto che mi ha lasciato i miei genitori, ma le persone che devono pagare l'affitto, il mangiare, la luce, il gas, l'acqua e prendono 400-500 euro al mese, mi dici come fanno? Io mi vergogno tanto perché non è giusto, perché questo è come venire a chiedere un'elemosina. E io ho preferito tante volte mangiarmi una tazza di latte con i fette biscottate.
Margherita works for Nonna Roma, the charity behind the project. The group also delivers food parcels to thousands of families.
Con il primo lockdown la richiesta è esplosa, per fortuna anche le donazioni, e quindi siamo passati appunto da 150 nuclei familiari al mese a 700-800 a weekend e poi dallo scoppio della guerra in Ucraina l'anno scorso la richiesta è risalita alle stelle. Aumenta costantemente.
Pensioners but also working families are among the people who rely the most on this type of support. The sharp rise in the cost of living is one of the main causes.
Ci sono due tipi di fattori, direi, congiunturali, cioè di breve termine, e tra questi l'inflazione è il primario. L'inflazione naturalmente, come sappiamo, colpisce i redditi fissi e soprattutto le fasce più deboli. Poi ci sono cause strutturali. Le cause strutturali sono anzitutto la bassa crescita. L'Italia è uno dei grandi paesi europei che cresce troppo poco da troppo tempo. L'altra causa sono i bassi salari.
Struggling families blame the Italian government and recent cuts to welfare benefits. And if we look at other European countries, it doesn't get any better. According to Eurostat, more Italians are at risk of suffering from poverty than average EU residents.
Wildfires raging across Brazil's Pantanal wetlands. This rich ecosystem, home to over 3,500 different plants and more than 1,000 species of birds, fish and mammals, is under threat. Recent heat waves, strong winds and droughts are fanning the flames in a region that usually benefits from humidity.
Se não houver plano de intervenção, se não houver plano de preservação urgente, infelizmente, ano que vem ou no próximo ano, a gente vai estar aqui novamente sofrendo com tudo isso que a gente está passando hoje. Né? Infelizmente, a gente anda pelo Pantanal e hoje parece cemitério a céu aberto.
More than 2,000 kilometres north in the city of Manaus, the largest in the Amazonas state, a toxic cloud of smoke from nearby forest fires in the Amazon hangs over the skyline. According to the World Air Quality Index, the air quality in this city is one of the worst in the world. And in Rio de Janeiro, the mercury this week has reached a record 52.6 degrees. This after the National Institute for Space Research reported heat waves have become 7 times more frequent in the past 7 decades.